Okay, everyone, we are ready to continue with the afternoon session of GibTalks 2023. And for our next talk, you should have an envelope like this that's been provided by a member of our front of house staff. So some audience interaction. You already lifted the box. Now you're going to do something with this. But as it says, please do not open it until our speaker asks you. Our next speaker is a former banker and a current MP, and he's using his platform to raise awareness about an issue close to his heart, which is the issue of mental health. Please welcome on stage Roy Clinton, MP.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. First of all, let me begin by telling you what I'm not going to talk about this afternoon, which may be a change. I'm not going to talk about a topic that I know is very close to all your hearts, and that is money and public money and how we spend it. So I'm not going to talk about this today. I'm sorry if you came here thinking I was. And neither am I going to talk about something else I keep in my pocket, which is this little piece of fool's gold, which I got, I think, as a 10-year-old when I was at the Natural History Museum in London. And I keep it in my desk just to remind me of human folly and the dangers of greed. And neither am I going to talk about a subject which I really do love, and I'd love to talk about, and that is Gibraltar's history, our local history. And I'm not going to promote my book. In fact, I didn't bring it with me, unfortunately. No. I want to talk about something different. I want to start a conversation with everybody in this room about something that none of us can actually see. We can't taste it, and we can't touch it. And yet it is more valuable than anything we possess. More valuable than all the gold and money in the world. I want to talk to you about our mental health and how each one of us in this room can help each other just by starting a conversation about mental health. We're perhaps more conscious of our physical health. If we feel pain, we do something about it. We seek medical help. And if we're bleeding and dripping blood, it's our instinctive immediate reaction to try and stop it. And yet, if the person sitting next to you today suddenly had a violent fit or severe nosebleed, you'd immediately react and offer assistance or cry out, "Is there a doctor in the house? Is there a doctor?" But consider the contrast with mental health. It isn't immediately obvious that the person sitting next to you today or behind you today may have declining mental health and may need assistance. So what can we do, you may ask? Well, first of all, let me make it perfectly clear that I'm no expert on mental health. I have no training in mental health, and I have no qualifications in mental health. But it is a subject on which I have had a long personal interest, which I will explain later. I'm, of course, more qualified to talk about the three things I mentioned at the beginning, namely money, investment, and our local history. But today, I'm going to take a risk and step completely outside my comfort zone to share an idea with you all in this room. And it's not a new idea. It's not my idea. Indeed, GibSams have run a campaign on this, as have ITV in the United Kingdom. And that is, it's really quite simple. Let's talk to each other about mental health. ITV call it Get Britain Talking. Now, it's perhaps easy to conclude that so long as we have GibSams, the Mental Welfare Society, the Clubhouse, and we donate generously to these charities, as we've always done as a community, that our job is done, our conscience is clear. I would suggest that perhaps we need to take ownership of mental health. Not just our own, but also that of our family and friends. I'm suggesting we move the discussion from the macro level of these worthy organizations to the micro level of every individual in this room, and what each of us individually can do. And I would suggest two simple things. Firstly, we need to be kind to ourselves and recognize that the world is not perfect and life is not always fair. As they say in the aircraft safety briefing before you take off, make sure your oxygen mask is correctly fitted before trying to help anyone else. We live in a world where we're bombarded with images of perfection on a daily basis through social media. Everyone has a perfect career on LinkedIn, have you noticed? Everyone has fantastic friends and fantastic holidays on Facebook. It's great. And thankfully, I have to say, Instagram and TikTok are completely beyond me, and I have no idea how that works, but no doubt everything is beautiful and perfect on that too. Life is perfect. But of course, we know life is not perfect. And we should allow ourselves that reality check, our moments of imperfection, and take time out for ourselves on those days when we need to. We're not machines. I was struck how the Prime Minister of New Zealand, in a moment of complete honesty, which is perhaps rare in politics, told the world she was resigning because, and I quote, she had nothing left in the tank. Nothing left in the tank. We need to recognize our personal frailties and know when to take time out or change direction, regardless of what others might think. This might also mean seeking professional help ourselves if things are really bad. So secondly, what else can we do? Well, we need to be there for our family and friends. They may need someone to talk to, and they won't necessarily reach out. It is the non-verbal indicators that may speak volumes more than a conversation. Changes in behavior or even withdrawal from social interaction are usually a clue. We should be open to providing a friendly ear or shoulder to cry on for our family and friends. We should always make time to meet each other and have that coffee and chat. That personal interaction and act of caring can sometimes be more effective than 1,000 sessions with a professional who is required to maintain boundaries by their profession, and they're therefore not necessarily able to express their own personal opinions or share their experiences. But you can do at an individual level. So let me give you, by way of example, my own personal experience as an 18-year-old student. This is now some 37 years ago. I almost forget. I left Gibraltar in 1986 to study a 4-year master's course in mechanical engineering and management, or M-Engine-Man, as it was called then. Yes, I went off to train as an engineer. Now, not many people today remember that I had my heart set on becoming an engineer, and I'd done physics A-levels in physics, chemistry, and maths. I was really excited and over the moon at getting a scholarship. At that time, there was a point system, and I think probably no more than 20 of us went to university that year. This was a time when mobile phones or email just did not exist. And you had one phone call home a week. That, of course, depended on how much change you had left for the payphone. University I was at, the University of Birmingham, was a massive, red brick university campus with 10,000 students. And I was the only Gibraltarian on campus. And in fact, I was only the second Gibraltarian living in the whole city of Birmingham with over 1 million inhabitants. Now, the reason I say this is to give you a sense of the total isolation from Gibraltar that I felt, although I was not actually homesick. The course I signed up to was extremely tough and very competitive. And although I passed my first year exams not easily, but I passed them, I found I was becoming disillusioned with the course. I wasn't cracked out to be an engineer. Now, the first problem I had was actually accepting that I had made a mistake. I wasn't used to making mistakes. And I spent the first term of the second year at university struggling to accept that I really just could not carry on because I'd lost all motivation. But yet, I knew I could still do it. I could still do these exams. When I went home at Christmas that year, my parents took me to see a doctor, and they had my blood tested because I looked so lethargic. And this dilemma tormented me for months, until I saw a notice of the student union advertising a counseling service. Now, to access a counseling service, you needed a medical referral. So I went to the medical center, saw a doctor, and his first reaction was, well, look, you look fine to me. You don't need a referral. In fact, it was only when I looked him in the eye and I said, well, what exactly do I need to do to convince you that I need a referral? His face then changed and issued the referral without further word. It took only a few sessions of counseling to help me realize that the mental knot I tied for myself could be cut quite simply by changing course. It was that easy. It's pretty obvious and normal these days, but it wasn't something that happened frequently back then. So I had finally been able to help myself in seeking advice and help. Problem solved, you might think. Well, unfortunately not. In a very cruel twist of fate, I'd taken so long in deciding what I wanted to do and what course of action to take, that when I actually asked the departments to change course, they only gave agreement if I passed all my second-year engineering exams. In hindsight, this was, I think now, completely unfair, and it put me under enormous pressure and stress, and probably, with hindsight, pushed me towards depression. If I did not pass the exams in subjects that I was now actively and consciously hating, I would simply be kicked out of university. And then I would return back to Gibraltar in what I would have thought was shame. These days, you'd probably just take a year out, no big deal. Things in my mind began to get really dark. The effort required to jump that hurdle placed in front of me would take all the mental strength I had left. It seemed hopeless. It really did seem hopeless. And I recall that walking past the student union, I saw a sign and I signed up as a blood donor. They were doing a blood drive in the student union. And I thought, well, at least some part of me would be of some use to someone. I really was in a bad place. However, later that day, a letter arrived from a fellow student from Gibraltar, who was at another university in in England. In those days, you'd actually write letters. Email, WhatsApp just didn't exist. It would take a week or more to get a reply to a letter you'd written. Now, I haven't been able to find that letter again, but I will never forget what was enclosed with it and what this friend of mine said. Now, please open your envelopes, which you should all have one of these with you. In it, you will find a message from GibTalks, if anybody needs any help, and an After Eight mint. Now, my friend, apart from knowing very well and knowing that I was a complete chocoholic, she realized I was really having a tough time. And she wrote simply telling me, look, cheer up, it'll all be all right in the end. And she knew I would do whatever was necessary. And to prove her faith in my ability to do it, she enclosed her last After Eight mint. Now, I still remember this today. It had a miraculous effect on me. And immediately, apart from putting a smile on my face, I determined there and then I would do it and I would not give up. And I would get through those exams no matter what. When I returned to Gib in the summer of 1988, having changed course, I was determined that no student should have to go through the experience I'd had. And so with a group of friends, we created the Gibraltar Students Association. And its first stated object was, and I quote, to provide an information and support network for all its members. We also set up regional networks so that students from Gibraltar would never feel isolated. And I think it worked well in those early years, and it provided the support where previously there was none. The rest, ladies and gentlemen, is history as I stand before you today. But what I went through in those early years at university was an experience that I've never forgotten, and I've learnt valuable life lessons from it. The scars have long since healed, but it has given me a deeper appreciation of the importance of our mental health, which you should never take for granted. So in conclusion, today I symbolically gift each and one of you here today my last After Eight. Because we all need an After Eight, we all need a bit of encouragement, and we all have bad days. A simple act like this can make a big difference. So please pass on this simple idea to others. The world we live in, ironically, can leave us more isolated from each other despite the advent and widespread use of social media. There was a shocking statistic that was revealed in our Parliament last year, and that was the number of suicides in Gibraltar recorded by the coroner was 20. Of these 20, all were male. Each of these individuals would have had their own life stories. Statistics by themselves are meaningless unless they can serve a purpose. So I leave you then, ladies and gentlemen, with this idea, and that is we need to talk openly about mental health, not in abstract terms, but as individuals, so we can help not just ourselves, but each other. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.